Big thanks to Kamado Joe for sponsoring this episode.
I'm gonna make a dry-aged rib roast with crackling pork skin on the rotisserie. 4 weeks ago, a neighbor of mine showed up with a bunch of pigs. 4 whole pigs cut in half, and he asked me, hey man, can you help me butcher these pigs? I want to take them apart, I want to get all the pieces. So we worked 2 nights in a row to make sure that we butchered them. Some friends and family showed up to help us out, and we got some great products. Now, as a gift, he gave me 2 half sides of pig. And what did I do? I stuck it in the dry ager. And this is the piece that I'm gonna take my rib roast out of. That beautiful side that you see. And it's been there for 4 weeks. Let me tell you, this is insane. Because I've had some dry aged pork in the past, but they never went over 3 weeks. And I'm excited that I could do this in the dry aged cabinet. So without further ado, let's take it out and take it apart. Now this thing is actually quite heavy, so it's a good thing to carry it with 2 persons. I want to get it on here as quickly as I can. Whew, thanks Mitchell. Now, this is insane. And why do I get so excited about this? Because it just looks like a piece of pork. Well, since I dry aged it, the skin completely changed. Listen to that. Like, seriously. This has transformed from just a piece of skin to something that is really hard. We got the perfect precondition to make pork crackling skin on the barbecue. For the rib roast, I'm going to be taking the most beautiful section of this pig, which is this part of ribs that's sitting right there. The challenge is going to be to get through the bones right there, but I'm going to show you a little trick. So the first step is to cut through the meat side. And then it's time to take my forged deboning knife and work these ribs out of the meat. And this way you can clearly see why I'm using a deboning knife. It's much easier to work it around the ribs than a normal knife would be able to do. If you've never done this before, it's a lot of fun to do, and you can always make your own cuts. Now I got to cut through the bones right there and through this part. So now we have this beautiful piece. And as you can see, we got that beautiful loin sitting there, a lot of fat, the skin, and too much of this. So I want to get rid of where we made the cuts to take the ribs off. So I'm going to flip it around, and I'm going to start by making 2 reference cuts. Detach the last pieces. Still some beautiful bacon part left, but most importantly, an absolutely gorgeous pork roast. Now, of course, since this is dry aged, I still need to take this part off. That's the pellicle. Now look at that. Beautiful eye, nice pieces of fat, intramuscular fat, all that belly is sitting right there. And of course I don't want to get rid of that. That's just beautiful. Now all there's left to do is to clean up these bones and make them look pretty. Now I got this beautiful piece all cleaned up, ready to go on the barbecue. I'm going to be cooking on the Kamado Joe Big Joe, and I'm going to be using the rotisserie. I still have a little bit of leftover charcoal, and I already shaked out the ashes. Now that's the cool thing about the Kamado Joe, because all you need to do is just lift it up, give it a shake, the ash is gone, and now I can add new charcoal. I'm going to be using some nice big block hardwood. I want to start off with just this little bit, otherwise I'm going to have all that grease from the pork rendering down into the flames and creating one big grease fire. 2 fire starters will be more than enough to get this up and running. Just light it up. And this should be good to go in under 10 minutes. So while my Kamado Joe is getting up to temperature, I'm gonna make 2 beautiful side dishes to go with this beautiful pork. And I'm starting with bacon jam. Now to make bacon jam, of course, you're gonna need a pan. I'm gonna use my Scottsburg, a lightweight cast iron pan. And of course, the first ingredient that I'm gonna add are bacon strips. This is around 500 grams of beautiful, delicious smoked bacon strips. And the next ingredients are red onions. Red onions are absolutely amazing in bacon jam. And I want to chop these up because in the end, all I want out of that bacon jams are the bits of bacon. And basically that red onion almost needs to disappear and only has to have like a velvety soft touch in your mouth. So I'm gonna cut it in half. Make some incisions. And then dice it fine. And that's more than fine enough. Now I'm gonna do another 5 red onions for this recipe. Chop them all fine. And then I'm gonna add them to the pan. I'll let them crunch up together with that bacon. Now the onion has turned beautifully soft and it's time to work on the rest of the recipe, which is 1 tablespoon of Lee Perkins's Worcestershire sauce or Worcester sauce. Now personally I like to also add a little bit of whiskey, but that's optional. Of course, when you're adding whiskey, you want to burn off the alcohol to make sure the recipe holds no alcohol but still has that whiskey flavor. And now all there's left to do to finish off this recipe is to add sugar. And this is around 5 tablespoons of cane sugar. Give it another quick stir, let it caramelize, and the bacon jam is done. And I'm gonna put all of that beautiful stuff in a little jar, because you know what's gonna happen is that I'm not gonna use all of this for just that one piece of pork. I'm gonna save some for tomorrow's sandwich, afternoon, lunch, a little snack, all of those good things. But to balance things out, I want another element in it. I want some acidity. So we got the sweet, sour, and the salty. And that's gonna make this recipe really pop. So what I came up with is what I love most with pork, and that is sauerkraut and apples. I'm gonna peel and dice these apples. Now it's time to put another pan on the fire, and this time I'm not using my cast iron pan because I'm cooking with a lot of acidity, and in itself it's not a problem with cast iron because you can just re-season and do it over again. But this time I'm going to use a stainless steel pan from Scottsburg. Set it over the fire, and another thing that I yield out of our home butchered pigs is lard. So I'm going to put some of that in the pan and I'm going to use it for frying, or some of it. Maybe all of it. You might want to tone it down a little. I'm just getting a little excited about my lard. Add the apple to the pork fat. Now the apple started to fry, I want to add sauerkraut to it. I want to get this as sour as I can to balance out all that fat from the pork. And to brighten things up and give it a more summery vibe, I'm going to add lemon zest of 2 whole lemons. To bring it up to flavor, I'm going to give a little twist on our old pepper mill, a pinch of fine table salt, and a pinch of sugar to sweeten things up. Now mix that real well, let it simmer for another 5 minutes, and it's done. Now it's time to get the skewer on this beautiful piece of pork, and we gotta find the center of this piece of meat. Now, you gotta think of 2 things. One is the total width of the meat, and that's gonna be the center right here, but you also have the center of gravity, and that lays somewhere else. Why would you stuck this in the middle? Because then it will easily fit your grill and it sticks out on both sides evenly much. But when you do, you're gonna have an offset on your rotisserie. So if you wanna find your center of gravity, just take this piece of meat, rest it on your hands, and you will see which side it will drop down to, and that will tell you where the center of gravity lays. There we go. And I'm gonna use these pins to actually secure the roast. Make sure it doesn't slide from side to side and keeps on rotating with the meat. Now I'm gonna sprinkle on a little bit of table salt to season this roast lightly. And once we finish, we will do another seasoning because we're never able to get as much salt on as is required to season the whole roast. And I didn't want to brine the pork because we got such a beautiful dry skin on the outside. Now before I'm going to put the rotisserie on, I want to evenly divide the charcoal, and I want to make sure I put it off center on both sides of the grill. I'm going to set a small aluminum tray in the center. I'm going to slide in the rotisserie, slide in the roast, and now I'm going to position it by sliding the roast dead center and then securing the pins. Of course, I'm going to stick a thermometer in to make sure that I cook it to the right temperature. And the core temperature's got to be 65 degrees Celsius. Because a lot of people ask me, how long is this recipe going to take? And it really depends on 2 things. The temperature that you're starting off with and the size of the roast. So if you have a giant roast and it's sitting at a temperature of 2 degrees Celsius and then you're going to put it in, it's going to take a long time. But if you already brought it up to temperature of around 20 degrees Celsius, it's gonna take less time because there's 18 degrees less to cover. Now in this case, this roast has been out for a while already. So I think it's at a temperature of around, well, maybe 10 degrees Celsius. I would say this is gonna take around 2-3 hours. Now I'm gonna close the lid, open the top vent to the first position, close the bottom vent to around 2 fingers. And I'm gonna let the Big Joe come up to a temperature of around 160 degrees Celsius. All right, we just put this on. 10 minutes, this thing is on the grill. And it literally already blows my mind. Look at this. The skin is starting to pop. That is things that you would normally see with a roast happening after 3 to 4 hours. We're getting so much more caramelization, so much more color. Can't believe it. We got popcorn right there and the roast isn't even getting up to temperature yet. Now that's a very, very exciting thing because dry aging a pork roast for 4 weeks is absolutely new to me. I had it for 3 weeks, but then I had only pork chops, and now I get the exciting thing about doing this myself and creating this beautiful flavor and seeing the real life effect of already having dried out that skin. It's been 3 hours and the roast is done. And the most amazing thing happened to this roast. The outside crispened up and caramelized like nothing I've seen before. Beautiful golden crust, nice crispy skin. And the way I test this is I use a thermometer and stick it in, and then you see a hole appearing, and that means the skin is ready to be eaten. Another thing that I did is place an aluminum tray at the bottom to catch some of that grease drippings to prevent a lot of dark black smoke on my meat. Another aspect that you need to take care of is the core temperature, and I cooked this to 65 degrees Celsius with a beautiful crispy skin. And that's what the rotisserie did, making sure we get it absolutely perfect. To serve this up, I want to take the meat off the bone and to be able to cut beautiful pork chops out of this. This is cooked to absolute perfection. And remember, this is the best quality pork you can have. And it has a little bit of that red meat. So this is not from being undercooked. This is from being high quality pork, because that's red. If your pork turns white, it means you got a sloppy pork, because that pig hasn't been able to roam around and build up color inside of its meat. Now check this out. The meat separated and the skin fell off. I didn't have to do anything. It just came straight off. And now we got all that drizzling that we can put on that beautiful pork. All that fat rendered down. Look at that. Oh, that's so good. Now let me prove to you that this pork skin is absolutely crispy and crunchy. This is insane. It's dry aged pork and it's really, really good. This stuff cracks like nothing I've ever had before. Because remember, whoever eats dry aged pork, and if I scrape off the little bit of fat that sits on the inside, I'm almost getting this glass-like structure. It breaks so easy. That's perfect. That's what you want to serve your guests with. It's gonna blow their mind. So if you have the opportunity to dry age your pork, it's definitely worth giving it a try. Now let's cut a pork chop. Single slice. Oh, juicy, tender pork. Now let's plate this up with a little bit of sauerkraut and apple. Then a couple of slices of drippy pork. And then on top goes that beautiful bacon jam. Delicious pork roast from the rotisserie, sauerkraut with apple that brings the acidity and breaks down the fat, and then tipped up with a beautiful bacon jam. Sadly, that plate went off to get his picture taken for the website, so Morrison and I got to settle for the scraps, which are not really a bad position to be in.
Yeah, there's nothing said about that.
There's nothing said about it. That is a good crunch.
I like it. It's more focused on the crunch, not about fat. That's what I love.
The fat's rendered down. I want to make sure I get a mixture of that apple, that sauerkraut, and now I want to make sure I get Can you please
Yeah,
stop?
sorry.
Pork, sauerkraut, bacon jam. That's the one that I was looking for. You get the acidity, you get the sweetness and the juiciness of this pork. And this pork is absolutely insane. We need to find more pig running around.
Yeah.
With beautiful pigs.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm going to eat them all. Yeah, now all the audio is screwed. Thank you, Morrison. So, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, then leave us a big thumbs up in the comment down below. While Morrison keeps on eating and I keep on chewing.
Keep on grilling. It's so loud.
So loud. I can't hear you.